Ash. And Day, perhaps you can tell a little bit more about the upcoming book?
Yeah, hi. So good to see everybody. Hi, Billy. It's so good to hear your voice. Um, Day and I have been working together. We have been working in the marketing space for probably our entire careers, and have been speaking about email and doing email workshops for several years, working together a lot on the speaking conference circuit. Workshops, like I said. And I think about this time last year, we were saying, like, we've got a lot here. There's a lot. And every time I speak about email, people trash it. They hate email so much. Email's the worst. And it is. Email sucks. I think that was like in one of my intros, is like, email is terrible. We have to make this better. Um, so we've got a lot. We've got a lot to say. We've got a lot that we've built up over the years and how to teach people how to make really effective email, how to just make email more enjoyable in our life. And so we talked, like I said, about this time last year, we were saying there's a book here. And then in April of this year, we escaped up to Montreal. Well, I went up, Day went over. We escaped to Montreal and had ourselves a little retreat, which was mostly going to the spa. But then we came up with a plan, and we each wrote our first chapters up there, and we then busted out the first draft. So this book is it's in a first draft messy form. It's ready to be shopped to publishers. If anyone on the call has written a book before and want to tell us about our path forward, that would be exciting. But yeah, we're here to leak a little bit of what's inside and get your reaction to what you think should be in this book. Day, what am I missing here in my intro?
No, I love this. I love this intro. The only thing I'll add is that Ashley and I have been approaching email from what I would like to call complementary ways, that's kind of how we realized that we should write a book together. Me watching her present and host workshops, and she's watched me do it. And what we talk about goes together well, but it doesn't overlap. So Ashley is exceptional at making people interested in things and knowing what's going to work and making it interesting and fun. And I focus on, okay, but are they going to click on this? And how should we write it? And what should it look like? So it's pretty complementary. So the book is really thorough in that way. It's not just philosophical and it's not just tactical. It's a little bit of both.
Cool. That's a good divide. Interesting and fun on one side, and then how to write it and make people take action on it.
Yes.
And I can certainly second what you said, Ash, and people's response to email. I think we've seen that also when you presented at HE Connect in Manchester, and people said, how do you feel about email? And all these not so positive words came up. But perhaps say a little bit more about what's in the email. What did you have in mind for this email book?
Yeah, I think, so we've split up our chapters in writing, and Day, maybe I can talk a little bit about what I tackled first, and then you can talk about your sections. But I'm a little bit of a communications history nerd, so I like thinking about how communication has evolved over time and what email means to us, and what it means to us now, and how I think it's probably going to sustain going forward. And right now, it's a really common and powerful utility. This is where a lot of important communication happens, mostly transactional, but in the States, your communication with the government is primarily through email now, not through the post mail and not through telephone. And so you need an email address to function. You need an email, and it's not just a certain generation anymore. Seniors are using email, very young people. I have an email address for my 5-year-old now that I monitor, but she has one. And so it really is a utility tool that we have to deal with. And when I think I always start coming from this place of like, oh, email. Oh no, we have to check our email. We have to manage it. And so we do have to do that because there's really important things happening there. And then there's a lot of really unimportant things that I think bother us. But Day and I we've worked in the nonprofit space, mostly with universities, and one of the possible titles for this book is Email for Action, because we know email can be for good. We know we can make a lot of change, and we can drive people to take action through email. Another possible title is just better email, because so much of it is so bad. So I talk a little bit about what email is as a tool, why it's different than social media, why it's different than these other forms of communication that we have that are probably less professional and probably a little bit less sustainable in terms of if you're going to invest in one space. I also, what are the other ones that I did? Looking at these in there, I did a chapter on good content, which I think I changed the title to that chapter to be Better Email.
Better
You did
email.
see that?
Love it.
Better email. But yeah, like what goes in there? What is supposed to be in there? What's not? What makes an email good? And that's really subjective, because it could be a terribly formatted plain text email from your grandmother, and you would say, this is the best email I've ever received, right? So some of it is really subjective. But we talk about what is good. Why do people want to receive email from you? And Day, why don't you talk about some of the, like, you got into strategy, you got into writing.
So the chapters I've written so far have been kind of, okay, how do you do it a little bit more? So it starts with planning and who your audiences are and how you determine what audiences are, or what segments you might have, and like what level of personalization is actually adding value versus just creating work for you. And especially when you're building kind of email communication journeys or sequences or flows. Different types of strategies to then reach those folks. Again, Ashley said we're mostly in the university, like higher education, post-secondary education sector. So a lot of our examples center around that. But, there's like government, there's other applications that are very similar. We're just giving folks the tools to create those strategies. And then my favorite parts in the book, which are like my favorite parts to talk about, is what the actual like email looks like. And when I say that, I don't mean like the design, because I am not a designer. I'm terrible at it. Ashley's actually an artist, so she could probably make emails look nice. But how you actually lay things out so that people can scan them very fast and understand what you want them to do or what you want them to know within 2 seconds. So it's very specific in terms of, this is, what a from line should be like, this is what a subject line should be. And then when you open it up, like these are the parts of the email where you should put the content you want the eyes to see first. So it's kind of following some research that has been done for web and how people read websites by the Nielsen Norman Group, that has actually been recently updated. And they found that the reading patterns haven't really changed, even though it's been like, I don't know, more than 20 years since the first study that they did, and that the reading patterns haven't changed even for mobile, which is interesting because that's where we kind of digest email more now. So we kind of really go into that. Just how do you get people to understand what you want from them quickly without being too cute or gimmicky, or what other people think email marketing is, which is actually like trickery. That's not what this book is. No trickery here. We also talk a little bit about some of the latter chapters that we wrote about working with people, because when you're in a company, you use email yourself to communicate with your colleagues. That's great. We also kind of address that and how to make those super effective. But really, we're talking about kind of marketing programs, right? Like reaching audiences with your email. And when we're doing it that way, we're not working alone. There's usually a subject matter expert or an approver or a boss that thinks that they should write everything better than you. So how do you work with stakeholders? How do you bring them in? How do you navigate the editing and approval process without crying yourself to sleep every night? And then how, yeah, everybody's laughing that has ever gone through that. I have. And then how do you measure success? Now I will say we, at least in this first draft of the book, we don't get too like technical with this, because there are very sophisticated ways to measure things nowadays, and like attribution and connecting your CRM to your website and all this really cool stuff. It's really more general. It's how do we measure that we're doing better or that our content's good. So it's these also kind of intangible ways beyond email metrics to know that you're doing a good job. So that's what we have so far. And then Ashley, I think you wrote a little bit about operations too, because that's your jam.
Yeah, optimize, streamline, use the robots when you can. Yes, we talk about AI.
Yes, there's AI. There's emojis.
Yes, that's all of us.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. And the book is out due spring next year.
Yes, that's the plan.
And you still want a little bit of feedback from this group? Anything in particular?
That.
Where would you like us to start?
I'm curious for everybody on the call, if you found yourself wanting to pick up an email book. Now, not a large textbook. This is not going to be a large textbook. This will probably take you about 3 or 4 hours to get through cover to cover.
Okay.
That's what the goal is. You know, what would you be looking for? What would you be hoping would be inside there? We want to make sure we didn't miss anything. We also are interested in stories, you know, where has email been able to connect people? Where has email been able to change the trajectory of a relationship with partners, either at a company or outside? What are some really terrible emails? We want you to send your bad emails to us, and we can share the email address that those can go to. But yeah, I'm curious what you would expect to find, and hopefully we're checking those boxes.
All right, good. So let's start with that first question you had. If you were to bring an email book to the beach, or would you pick an email book at a bookshop, what would you expect to be inside? Anybody here wants to go first? I can also randomly just pick on somebody, but you can also just raise your hand or write in the chat. Strategist, I saw you just joined from the University of Edinburgh. That's kind of in the same space. Anything you would look for in an email book?
Sorry to join late.
Problem. That's why I picked on you.
I knew you would choose me. So yeah, I was late on another call, and then thought I joined the last part of it. Can you repeat the question? And I can definitely.
So just if you, why don't you ask Ash the question?
Yeah, if you were going to pick up an email book, you decided, yes, an email book is where I want to spend a couple hours of my time reading through and learning something, what would you hope to find in there?
Okay, an email book, so book about, you know, how
book about emails, yes,
yeah,
how to make them better.
I think, yeah, have spent lots of time trying to get people's attention with emails. It's kind of a dark art sometimes. There are some themes that have come out, so I'd like to look some perhaps practical, straightforward ideas of how to write those emails to quickly make people understand why they need either to read the email itself or, you know, click on a call to action. So what are like the top 5 tips? I know it sounds very very common, but I don't think it's easy to find this in an email, like how to write that email that people triggers their attention, especially those that are not so close to the person, organization sending them. So in the University of Edinburgh, I'll explain why I say that. We have a very, very like thousands of people working here, right? And we have noticed, and that's the thing. They pay attention to those emails that come from someone close to them. So if there's the head of school, they react to it. If I send it, whoever am I, they never even open it. And sometimes there is a lot of important information in there, like an update on a policy that they should know, or something about a new legislation. They just don't react to it. Whatever the title, how many exclamation marks or red neon lights I put in them, they just read the sender. So that's one of the things that, it would be interesting to read techniques to get around these kinds of stuff.
All right, good. Thank you, Stratus. I'm going to let you off the hook, and let's see if we can hear from anybody else who wants to share what they would like to see in a book that's focused on emails for action or better email. Let's see if we have any brave ones here. Mark, from your perspective, what do you think?
For me, it was already interesting what you said, that the interesting point is where to put the interesting information, to have it quite fast, not too long, to keep the right measurement in how long an email should be, being nicer than just in a chat. Yeah, I've learned the other day from my young colleagues that they find it is very harsh to use pointation in a chat. Then it gets serious. I was to another colleague. I said, "Yeah, but it's correct, isn't it?" Yes, but if you do not use smileys and punctuation, then it gets very serious. Then I think I have done something wrong. So therefore, maybe I should stick to the email where I say that's correct wording. Yeah. So I said, I use email more than chats. Let's see how, especially in the combination with clients, to keep the right length but to have the right content or question inside. So therefore, I think I would see such things that would be great.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Very good. How about you, Britta? Would you want to chip in as well? I'm sure you've seen your fair share of emails.
Hi. Yes. I would be interested in taking the opposite view. Like, when I receive emails, when should I react? When shouldn't I react? For example, I always read all my emails. I just do. Because I do think that there's a reason why I get these emails. If they're written badly, I kind of get annoyed, but I write back. But I do think maybe a couple of tips for people how to organize their work life, like read your emails once a day. If there's a task in it, make yourself a note that you do want to reply. What to do when you have too many emails, because I have to send so many mails to people, and I do think they're actually okay, but people still don't respond. And if I call them, they're like, I forgot, or I'm sorry, and no. So my impression, it's also a thing. It concerns how do you work during the day? How do you deal with your tasks? And it's not always just because it's a bad email, people don't respond. I think they're sometimes just simply overwhelmed by work, and you can write a fantastic email and still don't get a response. So I do think you have to train people as well how to deal with emails rather than just sending good ones, which is the first step. But the other side is important as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Ash, anything that you could use?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I'm excited because so far the comments I'm like, yep, this is something we can cover. And then like inbox management is interesting because that's not something we had thought about, like the recipient side of the equation. Like, how do you know what to pay attention to? How do you know what to read or act, or like, and I know that both of us have actually an opinion on this subject.
Mhm.
So that's really helpful to think about where it could belong in the book.
Yeah. One of the things we do talk about is the just growth of like you are getting more email than you ever had. If it feels that way, it's because you are. And it's just going to keep growing. You're going to keep getting more email. AI is just going to like not only are people going to be able to create email faster and ship it faster with these robots, then that volume is going to increase too. But hopefully our email tools will also get more sophisticated and help us with management. That's another thing that we already are challenged with, right? Like what's going into junk and how's my email tool prioritizing for me? Yeah, I did think that was an interesting angle. And you're right, Dick. We have our own strategies that are probably different. How
As
we keep
are.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Simon, did you have something?
I just find it terrifying that we haven't reached peak email yet.
No,
That's just horrible to think of.
Yeah.
And I suppose the only other comment I would add is like, there are now so many channels and so many ways of contacting anyone. It's just where does it fit within that, and where is email best used for, and where would you consider use something else? I guess we started to use WhatsApp now for transactional things for our customers as well as anything else, and I suppose it's about that going where your customers are kind of thing. I suppose, and what they use, so something about that might be useful as well.
Yes, I think we don't, this is a book about one channel, but we do have to recognize the other, when to get an email, when to get off, right? And I think because it's a channel that you own, just as important as your website, it's one of those foundational, have it right. Going to WhatsApp is probably not going to solve it, all the communication problems, because there's still going to be really important communication that you still need to send through email, right? Like your contracts, you're probably not doing over WhatsApp, but once you've got someone under contract, now maybe we can switch to these more informal tools. And I found that at Cornell with text messaging, the text messaging channel is popular with people who are already really engaged with the university, people who are already volunteering, they're already attending things, they're already with us, and then they really love that channel. But the email still has its place, and the texting really doesn't work for acquisition. It really doesn't work for people who don't feel that close to you. So really important part of the mix. And and I think about it as that owned utility, that's a really important one to get right.
Cool. Coming up at the end, I'm glad that the two of you as authors found this feedback helpful. Someone also, or Brian asked, some of the things you found that make email suck. Seems like kind of funny way to wrap this call up.
Oh, what are some of the
things that make email suck?
Yeah.
Oh man, one of my biggest email pet peeves is when you send an email that's like, if this applies to you, well, you should know if something applies to me before you send me an email. So that, that's audience segmentation, your data, etc. But I hate those. Those suck.
Yeah. All right. Ash, your turn.
I had one that was sent to our bad at emailbook.co, which was great because I used the service Eventbrite. And Eventbrite said something like, "You're going to lose out, like if you don't start advertising now," and it was like really like making me feel bad right in the subject line. It was like taking me down, like I'm doing something bad and wrong with my event, and if you don't act now, they clearly didn't understand the strategy, and they didn't know that I was a marketing expert either, right? Like, but you can change a whole person's mood in some of these subject lines. You could make them really happy. You know, you put a smile on someone's face. But yeah, I thought that was a really bad call on their part. So we're looking for more of these bad examples so that we can turn them around and show how we would have done it and how we could do it better.
Dave, you want to share one more? That was your pet peeve. Do you have another example that you've seen?
I mean, anything that is too wordy and written like it's like you would write for another channel. So anything that's written just wordy, I think.
Too wordy.
Not written in natural language, again, does not work for email.
Got to be conversational.
All right.
Yeah.
Ash, you get the last example of an email that sucked.
Last example of email that sucks. Well, we know people have less than a minute. I mean, a minute is super generous of how much time someone's going to spend. And so I'm often doing audits and taking the amount of words and putting them into a service like Hemingway app or a word counter or one of these that tells us this is how long it's going to take someone to, and if you're writing an email that's going to take someone 6 minutes to read, you gotta cut that out. You gotta cut out the words. That's not what email's for anymore. We don't have that much time. So yeah, we talk a lot about empathy and being kind to the reader on the other side and understanding how much time they have and being respectful of that.
Yeah, I think
Very
respect
good.
is key. Respect is crucial.
Yeah.
How about that? Very good to finish on that. I think that's all we had. Some
Yay.
half an hour to by on using emails for action, but perhaps it's gonna be called Better Email. The email book is coming to a bookshop near you. Really look forward to it. Thanks for doing this. It seems like there's not a whole lot of literature on this subject.
We knew we had to do it. I had to write it fast, get it out there before someone else does. And thank you everybody for all of your feedback and good ideas. We'll incorporate those.
We'll keep following this journey as you progress and look forward to doing another call with you when the book's out. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Keep at it.
Thanks
Give
for having
up. I think it's important, and I think that was also the feedback in the call that there's room to improve. And like Simon said, we're not at peak email, so we need your book. No pressure.
We're on it.